On April 18, 1969, the sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows on the road, when Alex spotted a narrow, overgrown path veering off to the side. Curiosity piqued, he slowed the car, the tires crunching on fallen leaves. "Hey, check that out," he murmured, pointing to a rusted, almost swallowed by nature sign that read, "Whisper Hollow." The group exchanged glances. Sarah, ever the adventurer, grinned. "Let's see where it leads." As they drove deeper into the path, the dense canopy of trees overhead seemed to close in, creating a tunnel of greenery. The world outside faded, replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional cow of a distant crow. Suddenly, the woods opened up to reveal an abandoned town. Time seemed to have forgotten Whisper Hollow. Victorian-era houses lined the streets, their windows like hollow eyes staring back. An old clock tower loomed in the distance, its hands frozen at midnight. But what caught Lucy's attention was the town square. At its center stood a life-sized statue of a woman, her face etched in a perpetual scream, holding a lantern that looked out of place with its Polish-shade gleam. "Whoa," whispered Jake, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and unease. "It's like the town's been preserved in a time bubble." Lucy, camera in hand, began clicking away. The shutters sound unnaturally loud in the quiet. "This place is a goldmine for urban explorers," she exclaimed. But as the initial wonder wore off, an unsettling feeling settled in. The town wasn't just abandoned. It felt paused, as if it was holding its breath, waiting. Sarah, ever observant, pointed to the faded words on the town's entrance sign, now more visible from the inside. "Leave by dusk." The weight of those words hung in the air, but the allure of Whisper Hollow was too strong to resist. They ventured further in, unaware of the eyes watching from the shadows. The town square with its haunting statue became their starting point. The cobblestone streets branched out like veins, each leading to a different part of the town's history. The houses, though worn by time, still held hints of past grandeur with their ornate woodwork and faded paint. Lucy's camera clicked incessantly, capturing the melancholy beauty of Whisper Hollow. "Look at this," she exclaimed, pointing to a house with a still intact stained glass window, its colors dancing in the waning sunlight. Jake, always intrigued by mechanics, was drawn to an old workshop. Tools lay scattered as if the blacksmith had just stepped out. In the corner, a half-finished project, a metal lantern eerily similar to the one held by the statue, rested on the workbench. Sarah, meanwhile, wandered into what seemed to be an old library. Dust motes floated in the beams of sunlight, filtering through broken windows. The shelves, though sagging, were filled with books. One, bound in leather and embossed with gold, lay open on a reading table. Its title read, "Legends of Whisper Hollow." As she skimmed through, a particular passage caught her eye. "Beware the statue in the square, for when night falls, she comes alive, seeking souls to ensnare." A chill ran down her spine. She called out to the others, sharing her discovery. The atmosphere grew tense, the earlier excitement replaced by a growing unease. Amidst the exploration, Alex stumbled upon the dilapidated church. Its once sturdy doors creaked open to reveal pews covered in a thick layer of dust, and an altar with unlit candles. On the pulpit lay a journal, its pages yellowed but filled with recent entries. As the shadows lengthened, the group congregated back at the square, drawn together by an unspoken agreement. Whisper Hollow had many secrets, and they were just scratching the surface. But with dusk approaching, time was running out. As the group discussed their findings, a soft, raspy voice interrupted their conversation. "You shouldn't be here," it whispered. They turned to find an old woman emerging from the shadows of a nearby alley. Her skin was like crumpled parchment, and her eyes, though clouded with age, held a sharpness that belied her frailty. She leaned heavily on a gnarled walking stick, the top of which was carved into the shape of a lantern. Lucy, ever the diplomat, stepped forward. "We're just exploring, ma'am. This town, it's fascinating." The old woman's gaze swept over them, settling on the camera in Lucy's hand. "Some things," she began, her voice quivering, "are best left undiscovered." Jake, trying to lighten the mood, joked, "Like the town's ghost stories?" The woman's eyes darkened. "Not stories, young man. Warnings." She then recounted the tale of the statue. Once a beautiful woman named Elara, she had been wronged by the townsfolk, and, in her despair, had made a pact with dark forces. Every night she came to life, her lantern's glow luring unsuspecting souls to their doom. Those who looked into its light were never seen again. The lantern you saw in the workshop," she continued, looking pointedly at Jake, "was an attempt to trap her, but it was never completed." Sarah, clutching the legend book, asked, "How do you know all this?" The woman's gaze grew distant. "I've lived in Whisper Hollow all my life. I've seen many come, lured by curiosity, but few leave. And those who do," she paused, her eyes filled with sorrow, "are never the same." She leaned closer, her voice urgent. "Leave before nightfall. For once the lantern glows, there's no escape from Elara's grasp." With that, she turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind a chilling silence and a group of friends grappling with the weight of her words. The horizon began to bleed with hues of orange and purple, signaling the approach of twilight. The town, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, took on an even more surreal quality. Shadows stretched, long and dark, and the once clear boundaries between reality and legend seemed to blur. Lucy, her excitement undiminished, set up her camera in the town square, aiming it at the statue. "This is our chance to capture something truly paranormal," she whispered, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. But as the last rays of sunlight disappeared, a palpable tension gripped the group. The air grew colder, and a thick mist began to rise from the ground, enveloping the town in a ghostly shroud. The only sound was the distant hoot of an owl and the soft rhythmic ticking of the frozen clock tower. Suddenly, a faint glow emanated from the statue's lantern. It started as a mere flicker, but grew steadily brighter, casting an eerie luminescence over the square. The statue's stone features seemed to soften, and the face that was once frozen in a scream now looked eerily lifelike. Alex, his voice barely above a whisper, muttered, "We should have listened to the old woman." Sarah, clutching the legend book tightly, nodded in agreement. "We need to stick together and find a way out." But as they took a step back, they realized Jake was missing. In his place, near the workshop, was the incomplete lantern, now glowing with the same eerie light as the statues. The soft sound of a haunting lullaby drifted through the mist, drawing them towards the source. The statue, or Elara, began to move, her stone feet gliding soundlessly over the cobblestones. The group, entranced by the glow and the song, found themselves unable to move, their fate hanging in the balance as night fully descended upon Whisper Hollow. The lullaby grew louder, its haunting melody weaving through the mist and snaring the senses. The town square, once a silent testament to Whisper Hollow's past, now pulsed with an otherworldly energy. The statue's lantern cast dancing shadows that seemed to come alive, merging with the darkness. Sarah, her mind racing, tried to recall the legends she'd read. She remembered tales of spirits awakened at night, but also of protective charms and rituals. Shaking off the song's trance, she pulled Alex and Lucy close, forming a tight circle. As Elara glided closer, her stone visage now animated with a predatory hunger, the ground beneath them trembled. From the cracks in the cobblestones, ethereal wisps rose, taking on the form of Whisper Hollow's lost souls. They circled the group, their ghostly faces twisted in anguish. Lucy, her voice trembling, whispered, "The camera, it might capture what our eyes can't see." She quickly adjusted the settings, allowing it to pick up spectral frequencies. The display revealed a pattern in the way the souls moved, hinting at a possible escape route. But the most shocking revelation was Jake. He stood near the workshop, not as a captive but as a conductor of sorts, guiding the spirits with the unfinished lantern. Realizing they had a narrow window of opportunity, Sarah began reciting a protective chant from the legend book. As she did, a protective barrier formed around them, repelling the spirits. Using the camera's display as a guide, the group navigated through the maze of lost souls, moving closer to the town's edge. But Elara, her anger palpable, pursued them relentlessly, her lullaby now a furious scream. As dawn's first light began to pierce the horizon, the group faced a desperate race against time, with Elara's awakening threatening to trap them in Whisper Hollow forever. With every step they took, the boundary between the spectral and the real seemed to blur. The once familiar streets of Whisper Hollow twisted and turned in impossible ways, as if the town itself resisted their escape. The ghostly souls, though repelled by Sarah's chant, still reached out with longing, their mournful wails echoing in the mist. Lucy, her camera held high, tried to find a clear path. "The church," she cried, spotting its tall steeple piercing through the fog. "It's said to be hallowed ground. We might be safe there." But Elara was relentless. The statue, now a fluid, shadowy figure, moved with surprising speed, her lantern's light casting a net trying to ensnare them. Every time the glow neared, time seemed to slow, and the air grew cold, making their limbs heavy. Alex, spotting an old alleyway, shouted, "This way!" The narrow path was lined with salt crystals, a known deterrent for spirits. As they sprinted through, the souls hesitated, and Elara's advance was momentarily stalled. Emerging from the alley, the church stood before them, its doors invitingly open. But between them and sanctuary was an open square, and Jake, still wielding the glowing lantern, blocking their path. "Jake!" Sarah cried. "Fight it! Remember who you are?" For a moment, a flicker of recognition crossed Jake's eyes, but it was quickly consumed by the lantern's hypnotic glow. With no other option, the group charged, hoping to reach the church. The square became a battleground of light and shadow, with Elara's furious screams and the souls' wails creating a cacophony of despair. As they neared the church's steps, the first rays of dawn began to break, casting a golden hue over Whisper Hollow, turning the chase into a race against the coming day. Bursting through the church's heavy wooden doors, the group found themselves in a sanctuary untouched by time. Stained glass windows depicted scenes of protection and redemption, casting colorful patterns on the floor. At the altar, a large ancient tome lay open, its pages filled with symbols and incantations. Sarah, drawn to the book, began to read aloud. To bind the spirit and break the curse, one must complete the ritual of the first light. Lucy, scanning the church with her camera, noticed a pattern. The windows. They're aligned with the sunrise. We need to use the light. As they strategized, Elara's shadow began to seep through the cracks and crevices of the church, her presence an oppressive force. The souls, too, gathered outside, their wails a haunting chorus. Alex, recalling the old woman's carved walking stick, had an idea. The lantern. If we can merge its light with the dawn's rays through the stained glass, we might amplify the ritual's power. But they needed someone to confront Elara directly. Jake, still entranced, but showing signs of resistance, became their focus. Sarah approached him, reciting a purification chant from the tome. Slowly, the glow from the lantern began to wane, and Jake's consciousness started to resurface. With Jake partially freed and holding the lantern, the group positioned themselves by the windows. As the first light of dawn streamed through the stained glass, it merged with the lantern's beam, creating a prism of radiant energy. Chanting in unison from the ancient tome, the church became a beacon, its light pushing against the encroaching darkness. Elara's form writhed and contorted, her screams echoing with fury and desperation. The ritual's climax approached, the balance between light and shadow teetering on a knife's edge, with the fate of Whisper Hollow hanging in the balance. The church's interior was awash with a kaleidoscope of colors, the combined light from the lantern and the dawn creating a mesmerizing display. But as powerful as the ritual was, it became evident that something was missing. A final, crucial component. Lucy, her face pale but determined, stepped forward. The ritual needs a conduit, a bridge between the living and the spectral. She glanced at the lantern, its glow now intertwined with the dawn's light. "I brought us here. Let me be the one," Sarah protested. "There has to be another way." But deep down, they all sensed the truth in Lucy's words. With a heavy heart, Lucy positioned herself at the altar, the ancient tome before her. Holding the lantern aloft, she began reciting a self-sacrifice incantation. The energy in the room intensified, swirling around her, lifting her off the ground. Outside, Elara's form began to fracture, the souls she had ensnared breaking free, their wails turning from despair to relief. Inside, as Lucy's chant reached its crescendo, a blinding flash enveloped the church. When the light subsided, Lucy was gone, replaced by a new statue at the altar, a young woman holding a lantern, her face serene. The oppressive weight that had hung over Whisper Hollow lifted. The town, though still abandoned, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The group, their faces streaked with tears, exited the church. The path leading out of Whisper Hollow was now clear, the once treacherous woods welcoming. As they left, the sun fully rose, casting its golden light on the town. And while they had lost Lucy, they carried with them the knowledge that her sacrifice had freed not just a town, but countless lost souls, including their own. Years passed since that fateful encounter in Whisper Hollow. The tale of the town and Lucy's sacrifice became a legend. whispered in hushed tones around campfires, and passed down through generations. Alex, forever changed by the events, became a historian, dedicating his life to uncovering lost towns and their stories. In every lecture he gave, he'd end with the tale of Whisper Hollow, ensuring Lucy's bravery was never forgotten. Sarah, the book of legends always by her side, turned to writing. She penned a best-selling novel based on their experiences, its pages filled with suspense, horror, and ultimately, redemption. The dedication read, "To Lucy, the beacon in our darkest hour." Jake, the weight of his temporary betrayal heavy on his shoulders, sought solace in the spiritual. He traveled to remote monasteries, learning ancient rituals and protections. Eventually, he founded a sanctuary for those affected by supernatural events, offering them a place to heal and find peace. Whisper Hollow itself underwent a transformation. The oppressive atmosphere was replaced by a calm serenity. Travelers who chanced upon the town spoke of a comforting presence, guiding them safely through. At the heart of these tales was the statue of a woman with a lantern, its glow warm and inviting. One evening, a young girl, lost and afraid, stumbled into Whisper Hollow. As night fell, she was drawn to the church by a soft glow. Inside, she found the statue of Lucy. As she approached, the statue seemed to come alive, its stone hand reaching out to touch the girl's forehead. The next moment, she found herself at the town's edge, the path home clear before her. Whisper Hollow, once a place of horror, had become a beacon of hope, its guardian angel forever watching over those who ventured within. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and turn on notifications. Write which story you liked the most in the comments.